Yo, this is me, Mike, Ringmaster of the Imagination Circus, and welcome to our first ever
Halloween special.
Yes, I know I took a break last week, but to be fair, sometimes I need a break. I'll try to get an episode or a video out every week, but frankly, I don't know how other YouTubers do it. Regardless, we're having some Halloween fun, and I do love me some Halloween. The candy, the fear, the scares, the ladies in scantily clad costumes.
In girl world, Halloween is the one night a year when a girl can dress like a total slut and no other girls can say anything about it. The hardcore girls just wear lingerie and some form of animal ears.
What are you? I'm a mouse. Duh.
Yeah, that movie's pretty good, honestly. I mean, I would recommend it. Some people might not like it, but it's really good. It got turned into a musical for a reason. I mean, I don't think that movies need to keep being turned into musicals, except for King Kong. I feel like that makes a weird sort of meta sense, but everything else can go. Anyway, we're here to talk about Halloween. So this video, since I don't want to say unoriginal, but that I am only able to work within the means that I have, I've decided to make a sort of, let's say, recommendation list and discussion of what I think you should watch this Halloween. Or really just a random bit of nostalgia here and there. Anything, it's me talking about stuff I like. The usual. Anyway, let's begin. I've made a list to make this easier on myself, so let's go. Alright. Now, the first thing I, of course, have listed here is the classic Hocus Pocus.
Black is black, just like this.
Yeah, I know. Everybody talks about this movie, everybody likes this movie, but to be fair, this movie is really good. It's entertaining, it's funny, there's even a little bit of scariness throughout, and it's actually really well made for all things considered, and fairly heartwarming. So I'd say it's a perfect Halloween movie. Highlights include Bette Midler singing,
"Come on you, and now you're mine."
Yeah, that's a classic. Also, this movie is surprisingly dark. Now, I will tell any person who doubts it that Disney movies have plenty of darkness in them. Check any Disney villain death for the last, I don't know, ever since Disney has existed. But the point is that even in those movies, that's almost always the darkest we get. That and, of course, whatever the hell happened to most of the protagonist's parents. But there is, in Hocus Pocus, there's a couple of things. For instance, the scene where the witches are hanged at the beginning.
We shall be back, and the lives of all the children shall be mine.
That's pretty brutal. I mean, it's not the harshest of deaths, but it's still brutal. And granted, they come back from the dead. And then, of course, there's this scene. Yeah, again, they still don't die, but they're still these kids, these two teenagers and this small girl are still trying to burn them alive and to kill them. That's pretty brutal. Come on. I mean, it's stuff like this is why I love Disney. It's the subtle kind of horror that sticks with you. Anyway, and also, they think, apparently, they confirm these witches have made a pact with the devil because they think that this man is the devil. And if that's not hilarious and kind of horrifying, I don't know what is. Oh, I forgot to mention, before we move on to the next bit, I forgot to mention, I have a co-host this video. Allow me to introduce you to Jadar Rosh Hassa Hussein. Say hello, Jadar.
Great.
So Jadar here is kind of a, well, I'm not entirely sure what he is. I think he might be, maybe he's an alien, or a spirit, or maybe even a demon from another dimension. I don't know. Hey Jadar, what are you exactly? Oh, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I hope you all got that because we don't want to bust out Jadar's vocal cords. Obviously, speaking in this different environment is very difficult for him. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing on the list. Oh yeah, okay, this is gonna be a random pick by me, but I brought up the Cowboy Bebop movie. Yeah, Knocking on Heaven's Door, which is a fantastic title for several reasons, but regardless. So here's the thing. If people can go around calling Die Hard a Christmas movie, even though it pretty much has nothing to do with Christmas, then we can call the Cowboy Bebop movie a Halloween movie, even though it barely has anything to do with Halloween. And it has more to do with Halloween than Die Hard has to do with Christmas, let me tell you. But anyway, I love the Cowboy Bebop. I love Cowboy Bebop in general, but the movie is actually pretty good, and I might like it more than the main series. I mean, it's just more of the main series, but in a much longer format. But what I like about it is that it's got this pretty fun narrative going on throughout, and the villain is actually pretty cool. His voice sounds awesome, in my opinion. Like, specifically from the English dub.
Know much about purgatory? What? It's a place between heaven and hell, where those who were left behind, unable to get into heaven, continue to suffer. A place of struggle and pain. In other words, the world that we're in now.
Because I'm a dub watcher, sue me, okay? Come at me, come at me. I will take all of your abuse, but I prefer dubs over subs because I speak English, I do not get the nuances. Why should I have to read when I'm watching a show to watch a show? Anyway, I'm getting on a rant and a tangent. I shouldn't be doing that. Let's move on. Point is, I really like Knocking on Heaven's Door. It's got great action, as to be expected of a Bebop movie. It's got a fantastic performance by all of the regular characters, and I absolutely love everything about the movie. It's got a really nice, spooky touch with what's going on, and the mystery is really cool, and it's got, of course, as to be expected, a fantastic soundtrack. And I gotta love all of the songs, including this one, and how it opens.
Don't wanna be the one to pop your cherry, girl.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good movie, but that's a bit much, in my opinion, you know? Is it just me? It might just be me. Anyway. Anyway, before we move on, let's hear what Jadar has to say about this movie. What do you think of Cowboy Bebop Knocking on Heaven's Door? Jadar, what do you think? Yeah? Really? I would not have expected that. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that, but apparently. Okay, I'll try to do it, but I don't have a spaceship to Mars, so I don't know how I would pull that off, but whatever you say, man, I'll do my best. Of course, my next recommendation to you all is any adaptation of Sleepy Hollow. And of course, I'm a big fan of Sleepy Hollow. I live in New York. I've lived in New York all my life. I've been to the town. They really go all out for Halloween. As to be expected, you know, but even then, I think their high school mascot actually is the Headless Horseman, which is appropriate. I've even been to Washington Irving's house. Washington Irving, for those of you who don't know, is actually the original writer of The Tale of Sleepy Hollow and the Headless Horseman and Ichabod Crane. It's a fantastic thing. If you're ever in the area, I would suggest taking it. There's a great tour. It's wonderful. It's 100% wonderful. Now, as for recommending a specific version of Sleepy Hollow, I admit I'm mostly familiar with just two. That's the classic Disney animated version, appropriately spooky, and very much worth showing to kids. Now, sometimes I think that people just underestimate what kids can actually take when it comes to scares. I think people need to give kids more credit. Yes, even I have been a proprietor of this, really not giving the children I know enough credit to take it when it comes to scares. And I like scaring people. Maybe I'm a bit sadistic that way, I don't know, but I enjoy a good spook. And even if you're scaring me, I don't like to admit I'm being scared, but if it's a good enough scare, I'll admit it, because I am scared of things. There are certain things I absolutely can't stand. I can't stand being in the water. Specifically, I can't being in deep water by myself where there might be something swimming underneath me. Yeah. I also am stereotypically afraid of clowns, something that I am both kind of ashamed of, but at the same time, can you blame me? And I blame society for this, because I think if society wasn't afraid of clowns, I don't think I would be. But regardless, that is the reason that I am never going to watch any version of it, whether it be the campy version with one Tim Curry or the modern interpretation. You will never get me to look at it, not even in book form. Screw you. I will take my other scary Stephen King adaptations. Like Graveyard Shift. Now that's a classic, and it's got Brad Dourif in one of his non-Chucky roles. Pretty good. I would highly recommend it. Anyway, like I said, kids can be scared. Now, as I said, the Disney animated version from back in the day is pretty good. I haven't checked if you can find it on Disney Plus, but I'd be willing to bet you can find it on Disney Plus. I mean, come on. There's no way. It's gotta be. And it's pretty good. It's a fairly faithful adaptation of the original tale. Actually, it might be one of the most faithful adaptations ever created by Disney, now that I think about it. Disney loves, of course, usually to put their own swing on things, and they do that here as well. But I gotta tell you, I think this is pretty accurate to the original tale, at least the versions I've been told, I went to a reading, I've heard the story, I've read the story, and so I have to say, this is a pretty good one. It's short, obviously, but the story is short. It's meant to be just a nice, spooky Halloween story, and it works, and I think it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Another one that I think is highly underrated, in my opinion. It's not a fantastic movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I would not call it bad. I would call it good. Passable maybe, but good at the very least. It stars Johnny Depp. It's from the early 2000s, and also Christopher Walken is the Headless Horseman. Yes, most of the time he doesn't have a head, so you wouldn't know that, but you do see him with his head attached at certain points. And it's not bad. It's very much, obviously, because Sleepy Hollow is such a short story, they obviously had to pad it out. But they do a surprisingly good job doing that. And the story is not actually, it's not bad by any means. It's not the most fantastic story I've ever seen, and it's certainly not the most fantastic adaptation of a short story into a longer format that I've seen either. But as far as a movie goes, it's very good, and if you think it's a little campy or doesn't take itself so super seriously, I'd say it's actually an homage to classic Hammer horror movies. Hammer was a huge competitor to Universal when it came to certain adaptations of classic monsters. For instance, their versions of Frankenstein and Dracula are very popular, having starred Peter Cushing and one Christopher Lee in their heyday, so I would highly recommend those as well. Hell, I didn't even plan to recommend those, but hey, when you're bringing up something like this, you have to. But I would highly recommend this Johnny Depp starring version of Sleepy Hollow. Again, it's less faithful than the Disney animated version, but it's still entertaining and it still sticks to the spirit of the story. It's very fun, and I absolutely love it, and I would highly recommend it to you. It's a little nonsensical, but when you're telling the story of a headless ghost who's searching for his head and is chasing down a school teacher, or in the case of the Depp version, a police detective from New York City, well, sometimes you have to fudge the details. You know, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, because otherwise, I mean, come on, it's a headless horseman. Well, I mean, you're gonna believe in a headless horseman? I mean, come on. I mean, I'm a pretty big believer. I believe in a lot of spooky stuff. I believe in ghosts, but a headless ghost determined to find a replacement head, that seems a little exaggerated, especially when he's got like this flaming pumpkin. Why doesn't he just wear the flaming pumpkin? There was even a Murder, She Wrote episode that kind of did their version of it here. So yeah, you know, I mean, really.
You know, not Circus.
What, Jadar?
You know, not Circus.
What do you mean there's...
I do ya.
Really? Should I be worried?
Yo. Okay, then.
Well, I mean, a Doulahan isn't technically a ghost.
I will. Let knowledge. I spectacular.
Okay. I see your point. As it turns out, I may have invoked some reckless spirit who may want to eat my soul, so I'm going to have to take precautions. In case some of you do know where I can find some, I'm sorry, Jadar, could you please repeat that?
I spectacular.
Okay, could you please tell me where I could find the milk of a virgin goat? Really, really fast. Maybe one of you has a goat I could borrow for a bit? Preferably a male goat, apparently. Okay, yeah. I mean, I think I could find garlic. I think I have access to garlic jar. Anyway, moving on. Before some sort of terrifying beast comes for me. Yeah. Now I'm gonna talk about some sitcom Halloween fun. You guys ever seen Sabrina the Teenage Witch? I'm sure you have. You're less likely, or at least I assume you're less likely to have watched Home Improvement, starring one Tim Allen in his heyday. That was some good stuff. Both of these shows were fantastic, and both of them had a habit of doing Halloween episodes. They only ever skipped over 1 year apiece, which I think is kind of funny. They each had a Halloween episode in every one of their seasons, except for one. But I'm only going to highlight a single episode apiece. I do like both episodes, because certain episodes obviously stuck out because it's been a while since I've watched either show. But let's see. For Home Improvement, I am recommending the episode, and let me just see here, Season 8, Episode 6, Bewitched. That was a classic, and this is an episode I remember watching when I used to watch reruns of Home Improvement as a kid. I remember watching the episodes, and I distinctly remember this one because it actually freaked me out a little bit. I distinctly remember being freaked out a bit by the nature of the episode, because I've had dreams of like the episode where something happens and it seems so real and it's so horrifying in the end. And this is a pretty brutal. As usual, it revolves around a prank, because pranking was a pretty consistent thing on this show when it came to Halloween. And I gotta tell you, the prank in question is pretty extreme. Like, I think they genuinely scared Tim quite a bit in that one. Jill, you're pretty brutal lately. I'm impressed. I'm very impressed, but it's like, that's scary. That's actually really kind of scary. Like, holy crap. Like, and granted, what Tim did was, like, also a little brutal, but even then, that one was over with quickly, and it was definitely a lot more, I mean, granted, does making your friends think that you've actually impaled your own foot with an axe, is that more reasonable than making that person, that getting revenge and making you think that you disappeared because of a witch you apparently decided to date for a bit? Is that a bit extreme? Am I overthinking things? I mean, come on. Is that not scary? I don't know. I mean, genuinely don't know. All I know is that this episode is stuck in my mind for a long time. Whenever I've gone back to Home Improvement, I thought about the show. This Halloween episode is one of the ones that's sticking in my mind. And I think that with any good show, a holiday episode, especially a holiday like Halloween, is very likely going to, stick in your brain. Because it's a special event. It's unique. There's usually something going on that can be very interesting. And this is pretty spooky, I think. And it could definitely send you chills. So if you want something that's a little bit more funny, funnier than some of the other stuff, I will admit that a lot of the things I've recommended are funny. Some of them aren't, but a decent amount of the things I've recommended so far are funny. Anyway, I would totally recommend this. On to the Sabrina the Teenage Witch stuff, because I do want to recommend 2 episodes. Hold on just a moment. Now, my personal favorite Sabrina the Teenage Witch Halloween episode kind of goes back and forth between the season 2 episode, A River of Candy Corn Runs Through It, which is a fantastic title. I love that. That's just great. But it basically involves just, Libby brags that she's having a Halloween party. Considering that last year on Halloween, everybody thought she was stripped, that first Halloween episode in the show literally had Sabrina's doppelganger stripping and running through, and everybody seeing her. But then she makes them all think it's Libby. And while I think Libby 100% deserves that, I don't know, something about the idea of seeing Sabrina naked in that first season made me a little uncomfortable. Still makes me a little uncomfortable, and I couldn't tell you why, because I think that Melissa Joan Hart is a fairly attractive person, so I have no idea, but something about that always made me a little uncomfortable when I was a kid, and I couldn't tell you why. It's not just about her being naked. I think it has something to do with everybody seeing her naked. Even if it's not actually her, it might as well be, because it's a doppelganger, so their bodies are going to be identical. I don't know. That always made me a little uncomfortable. I couldn't tell you why. Anyway, but the season 2 episode actually focuses on Libby saying she's going to have a party, but then, of course, Sabrina's best friend, whose name I'm actually kind of forgetting off the top of my head, I'm not gonna lie. Which, to be fair, considering her character, might actually be kind of meta, but yeah, no, I'm having trouble remembering. Was it Val? Please tell me I'm right. Let me just check. It was Valerie. Okay, so I was kind of right. Give me a second. It's been a while since I watched the show, and I mean, Valerie was sort of forgettable on purpose, I think. Though she was also a little eccentric, but then again, I think we met her family at one point, and they were kind of eccentric. I don't know. I know that Sabrina had multiple best friends on the show, and that eventually Valerie had to leave. So it's kind of hard for me to say. Like, some of this stuff might be blending together. Anyway, so things go out of control because Sabrina now has to throw a party because her best friend kind of threw her under the bus, because at least, probably because Sabrina was probably a little bit more popular than her, let's be real. And as such, she throws a party, but there's a bunch of other magic stuff going on, like talking furniture. I don't know who decided that would be a good idea. I mean, they got away with a lot of insane stuff on that show because of magic, but I gotta tell you, talking furniture feels like a real, I don't know, it always felt like a weird inclusion to me. I mean, even by the standards of this show, it always felt like a weird inclusion to me. But outside of that one, oh, holy hell. Then by the end, there's of course a magical, literal pile of candy corn, which, I don't know. My dad loves candy corn. I don't know. It's not even, it's a combination of the flavor and the texture. The flavor is not terrible, but the texture combined with the flavor, I can't eat candy corn. Maybe it's because for me, it is just pure sugar. Is there, how much, tell me that it's not mostly sugar, that candy corn, because I like sugar. I'm addicted to sugar, but I like sugar in stuff. I'm not about to literally just eat sugar. Even I'm not that crazy. Anyway, yeah, that one always stuck out to me. Also, one of the few times Salem talks in front of mortals, he calls a kid a loser, and that is fantastic. I love Salem. Salem was always my favorite character on the show. I can't lie about that. But I think he was a lot of people's favorite character on the show because he's Salem. and he is funny. Anyway, the runner-up for my favorite Halloween episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch would probably be Goodwill Haunting. That's the 6th episode of season 3 of the show. So literally season 2 and season 3 are my favorite Halloween episodes. Because, I don't know, those two always stood out to me. This one is a little bit, it's kind of a mix of kooky and scary. Because in one half, we have this really creepy Molly Dolly, freaky thing that she is. Just, this thing could, when at the end we find out that this is just a normal toy for witch children, I'm like, okay, fair enough. Witch children got different values. This makes sense for them. Either way, most of the episode, she freaks me out. Although by the end, I could also see myself dating the doll, if the doll wasn't a doll and was actually an actual woman. I feel like I shouldn't have admitted that, but whatever. This is a Halloween special. We're getting really crazy, people! Anyway, point is, I always found this episode to be especially entertaining, whether it be the scares. Seriously, am I the only one who thought the doll was actually kind of scary? And how they're constantly running from it and everything that it brings to the table to terrify people? Because it is always spooky. I feel like it's one of the spookier Halloween episodes that Sabrina did. But then, we have the other half of the episode where Hilda and Zelda are, go to a party that's supposedly being hosted by their crazy aunt, apparently. Except that they end up at an asylum where they're chased around by mad doctors, I think. Again, it's been a while since I watched the episode. What always stood out to me about this half of the show was the part where they're running and they play Monster Mash in the background. Because it's how many shows have you actually seen this song? When you hear music in Halloween episodes of shows, it's not usually this corny, I guess? I don't know, but this is the only time I remember hearing that song. I feel like whenever I hear this song now, I associate it with this episode of Sabrina. It's a good episode. It's spooky, it's funny, it's a little scary, and it's Sabrina the Teenage Witch. What else can I say? I mean, that was a good show, and their Halloween episodes were, in my opinion, always pretty entertaining. But I think these two in particular was the ones that always stood out to me. They're the ones I remember the most. They're the Halloween episodes that I remember the most about the show. So it was a fun time. So I highly recommend them for anybody who's truly interested.
I will. I spectator. Spakai. Oh, Ego. Ayo.
Yeah, I think so, Jadar. No, I don't necessarily see why you would need to do that. I'm sure the spicy tuna will be fine. I don't necessarily see why you would need to do that. Well, that's just evil. No, it's really evil. Seriously, Jadar, are we sure you're not evil? Because I didn't bring you here from wherever the heck you're actually from just to say, for you to be evil. No, I'm not trying to take over the world. Are you trying to take over the world? Okay, that's good. Neither of us are trying to take over the world. You're not trying to enslave anyone, are you? Seek revenge? Force someone to fall in love with you who doesn't love you back? Okay, then I think we're good. Anyway... I mean, yes. No, I could always use a little bit more power. Fair point, but, I mean, is that really necessary? I mean, I'll give it some thought, but, I mean, where would we even find a chimp and a goat? Well, I guess I already kind of needed the goat for the other thing, but I mean, still... Okay, I see your point.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, we have exactly 5 days. And and that's about it.
Yo.
No, I'm serious. We only have 5 days.
Okay, then.
Well, what do you want from me? I can't control time. I would love to be able to stop time.
I will.
What do you mean?
I
Wait, is that what that book's... It's... Really? That's what that's been this whole time?
Okay.
I mean, okay. But I gotta tell you, I'm not super... I mean, if I get stuck in time, this is on you, and I expect you to pull me out somehow.
Oh.
Yes! Well, then find a way to do it. Okay. You're probably right. Let's get back to the show. Anyway, guys, I'm sorry. That was probably not at all necessary. Anyway, let's move on to some more recommendations. I feel like I may have made this list a little too long, but that's me for you. Anyway, let's go to... I don't know why I decided to go with this transition, but we're going with it. Anyway, and now that I think only Halloween episode done by the current iteration of DuckTales. I love this show. I'm a huge fan. I mean, I'm a Disney guy, in case you couldn't tell. I mean, at least 2 of the things I've talked about already are Disney properties, so I feel like that should be obvious. And I am drinking from this mug, you know? So I feel like that should be pretty obvious. Anyway, so this episode, the Trickening, which is a really good episode. So many references. Like, seriously, there are a lot of references to other horror properties throughout. And one of my favorite jokes I have ever heard in my life. I'm not kidding. This might be my favorite joke ever done on DuckTales. And they've done a lot of good jokes. It might be my favorite joke ever. Like, I'm not kidding. And considering I mentioned my fear of clowns earlier, I feel like this kind of plays into that.
But why the extra costumes? You're already monsters.
Kids today don't appreciate the classics. You're scared of, like, random kid stuff. Puppets, clowns, little girls in wells. What is wrong with you guys?
Well, Frankenstein think it stemmed from latent fear of being perceived as childish and regressing to a place where you're no longer in control.
Yeah! Tell me that's not actually that's really clever. I feel like that's way too true, and it kind of makes me a little bit sad. Should I feel sad that children are no longer afraid of classic monsters? Is that bad? Does that make me a bad person? I feel like that might make me a bad person or something. I don't know. Either way, I enjoyed this episode. And it's only your basic 22-minute animated episode of something, but it's good. It's worth watching. And it's packed with laughs, and it's got a good atmosphere. Also, costumes. I haven't mentioned it, but so, costumes can make or break a Halloween episode. If your costumes are good, it can kind of meh, and if not, you know, they could be really good. And if they fit the characters, or are just funny, or genuinely scary, or clever, or any combination of thereof, it can be really good. And I think costumes are kind of get thrown by the wayside in a lot of good Halloween stories, because people, you know, they think it's a thing for kids or adults at really risque adult Halloween parties for some reason. Seriously, why is there no middle ground for, like, say, teenagers? I mean, is it just me, or am I just not watching the right Halloween stuff where teenagers actually dress up in costumes? If you guys have some recommendations with that exact premise, I'm not saying that needs to be the only thing. I want it to be good, or at the very least entertaining, but I'm just saying, it feels like we emphasize too much that during that period of your life, you're not supposed to go out in a costume on Halloween. You can go to a party and be fun, but it's not usually a Halloween party. Or maybe it's just where I grew up. Maybe that's why it is. I don't know. It kind of irks me. But, you know, I would definitely recommend this episode of DuckTales, though. It is good. I will say, I played the current version of the theme song, but I will say they did a Halloween rendition that was not bad. I wish they changed it up a little bit more, but I think they could have gone for it. But it's not bad. I mean, what do you guys think? I thought that was pretty good, but I feel like they could have gone further with it. Anyway, My next recommendation is Happy Birthday Ween, the Halloween episode of Ruby Chibi, the delightful comedy spin-off to the main Ruby series. Now, as far as you should all know, I'm a huge Ruby fan. Case in point, right here, let me tell you, and I've been a Ruby fan for, oh god, I guess I got into it right around the end of the third volume, which means that I was right around there at that point, one for Ruby Chibi to become a thing. And I don't know why it apparently disappeared and doesn't appear, like seriously, they never announced the show's cancellation, but we still don't have new episodes. And it's been a while, and season 3 feels like it's very unfinished because it's shorter than the rest of the Ruby Chibi. Come on! Where are those other episodes? They've got to have made other episodes, and the show just got, I get it. Rooster Teeth was in a bit of turmoil at the time, but where are those episodes? I need my Ruby Chibi, baby! I'm sorry. But my point is, Ruby Chibi was really funny, and they had a Halloween episode. Now, of course, Ruby Chibi was always very short episodes, but it was a comedic skit show essentially, set through the framework of the Ruby universe. I felt like a broken record there for about a second, but the point is, it was very good, and throughout it, it's had many of some of my favorite punchlines and jokes, including...
Too slow, Ice Queen.
That does it! You're dead meat!
You know, flirting was a lot less destructive in my day.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I thought that stuff was pretty funny, but this one is a great Halloween episode because it has 3 pretty funny skits. The love potion one with Nora was probably the scariest. No lie. Samantha Ireland is a national treasure. Love her. She's seriously fantastic. Anyway, point is, the best part is the skit for which the episode is actually named. That being the end where we learn that apparently Ruby's canonical birthday, yes, even in the main show, though I don't think Halloween exists in the main show, but her birthday is October 31st. In fact, this was a main sticking point and piece I used in my episode about Ruby not being Crow's kid. If you would be so kind as to go watch that, that would make me very happy. But the point is, the episode is great. That bit is great because Ruby is just using the fact that it's her birthday as an excuse to take, trick-or-treating candy from other people. And it's like, can't you just imagine this actually happening in real life? Like some little snot who happened to have been born on Halloween and takes complete advantage of it with any of those, takes advantage of it at any given time and steals, hey, it's my birthday, give me some of your candy. I can totally see that happening. And you know what? The comeuppance that she gets at the end of the episode, I think is fantastic. I think it's a pretty good one. I don't know. I think it's a little underrated because it's not the most outstanding skit in the world. It's not the most outstanding skits, period. But I think for a Halloween episode, it's pretty dope. And, I would highly recommend it if you just want a couple of minutes of fun. And if you want fun in general, watch the rest of Ruby Chibi. And, tell Rooster Teeth we want some more, That wouldn't, but do so respectfully. Just because it's Halloween doesn't mean we all have to turn into monsters. Anyway, next recommendation is Witch, W for Witch. That might have been a little bit confusing for some of you. Let me explain. I'm a fan of the series Witch, aka W period I period T period C period H period. It's just called Witch. That is how it is technically spelled. You could technically just call the series Witch, but you have to spell it that way. Otherwise, you could... you're still going to confuse some people. Yeah, when I became a fan of the series, I quickly realized, I think, when they designed the title, the Disney execs, and this is a Disney show, by the way, which is an important sticking point to something I'm going to be talking about, but When they designed this title of this series, they did not have marked to the internet searchability specifically, because I have tried looking up Witch, and granted, the main series, the Wikipedia article comes up, the TV Tropes article will come up, but anything else, very little else about the actual series Witch will come up, and it's very irritating to me personally, because I would love to hear some people talk about this show. The show isn't on Disney Plus, which is so irritating. Like, this is a good show. It's a show you own, Disney, and I know you canceled it, but your reasoning, bring it back, okay? Bring it back. This show is worth getting back. I want to see what else is supposed to happen, okay? The books were great. I'm a huge fan, and so I'm also a huge fan of the book series, or the comic. But it's a comic book, but so here are the books, the comics. These are all volumes of the collected issues. It originally was an Italian comic book, but it got translated into English, and these are all of the volumes that well, not all of the volumes. I actually have more volumes than just these, but these are the ones I decided to put on display down here in my, well, showroom, if you will. My circus ring, if you will. Anyway, point is, I'm a huge fan of the show, and they only did the one Halloween episode, which is kind of ironic, because if you read the comics, the story begins around and on Halloween. Like, the first main story takes place on Halloween. Will's even dressed as a witch. It's Witch. So the fact that they only really did the one Halloween episode, and it was in the second season, the season that the show was canceled. Now, the thing about the Halloween episode of Witch, which is titled W is for Witch, because all of the episodes of season 2 were titled as A is for something, B is for something, C is for something. As such, W was for Witch, and it was also the Halloween episode, where the girls go out in their guardian forms on Halloween because it's very convenient, and we get this joke.
Wow, you changed clothes fast.
I don't remember Halloween costumes coming with that kind of padding.
And this isn't even the first time they did that.
What if we got behind us?
What if we got in front of us?
In the very first episode, it might have to do with the way the comic, because the comics were a little bit more explicit with that stuff, being Italian and whatnot, but still, these are teenage girls. Very, very young teenage girls. And it feels a little weird, and just a little, I mean, it's funny, but it makes me a little uncomfortable. That's all I'm saying. Regardless, it's a fun episode. I will say, if you're not a fan of Witch and you haven't already seen the show or don't know all that much about the series, I wouldn't recommend watching the episode, because maybe binge watch the rest of the show first, or at least all the episodes that come before it, because it's a Halloween episode, but it's also fairly plot relevant. And, well, spoilers. Seriously, you will either go into it completely blind and not have any context, but still be spoiled for a lot of stuff that happens for the rest of the season, or you will go in halfway through, having maybe be barely familiar with the end of the first season or the beginning of the second, and again, be spoiled for stuff that happens later in the show. So I would recommend, it's a good episode, but I would 100% recommend seeing the rest of the show and the rest of season 2 first. It's good stuff. I am seriously annoyed if I want a renewal so badly. And I found this on Pinterest, and this is amazing. I would watch this. Seriously, can we get more Witch? Disney, give me some more Witch. I will pay you. I don't know. I will pay you to make this happen. I'm not kidding. Along with, like, a Land of the Lost reboot, and what else do I want? Maybe to bring back Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I know that's probably not going to happen, that last one, but still, I will take what I can get. Give me more of these things that I love to a unhealthy degree. Now, boys and ghouls, I just felt myself and my soul die a little bit inside saying that. I blame you, Jadar. You made me say it. You Anyway, we shall be diving into one of my favorite series. In fact, my fourth favorite series of all time. In fact, my fourth favorite series of all time is Scooby-Doo. The first three are in this order: One Piece, Ruby, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Anyway, Scooby-Doo. Yes, I am in fact a big Scooby-Doo fan. And I actually do own some Scooby-Doo merchandise. In fact, I own a Scooby and Shaggy pop figure. If they would release the other members of the gang, I would be very happy and would very much buy them. The fact that they didn't release the other members of the gang kind of baffles me. They did release a couple of classic monsters, including Ghost Clown. If clowns weren't creepy enough, and this one can hypnotize you, and my personal favorite Scooby-Doo monster of all time, the classic Spooky Space Kook. Yes, that is the way that thing actually laughs. I'm kind of disappointed that in Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed they didn't actually bring that one back, because if you look at the museum, you can see the costume for that exact monster there. It's hidden way in the background among all the other super obscure Scooby-Doo monsters, but it is there, and I am super disappointed that they didn't use Space Kook, because they could have used that laugh. It is genuinely creepy. Why didn't you do it, Warner Brothers? Why didn't you do it? Anyway, the point is, I love Scooby-Doo. And yes, even the live-action ones, including the vastly not as good but still entertaining live-action TV movies, which may or may not be in continuity with the live-action theatrical releases. And yes, I like the theatrical films. Do I think they need some polish and that some things about the first one could have been better? Yes. But I will say, I think Monsters Unleashed was a vast improvement and is actually pretty good. Also, it has Seth Green. I mean, I love the rest of the cast, but the fact that they just got Seth Green in there makes me very happy. He was also Leonardo in the 2012 series for a vast majority of its run. Yeah. I am a nerd. The point is, I am such a huge Scooby fan, so I'm going to recommend some Scooby-Doo things. This classic Scooby-Doo flick, and the one that started the whole direct-to-video market for this franchise, which has not stopped since the day it released. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. This flick is fantastic. It's a classic. It's the highest quality Scooby movie you will ever see. Some of them have come close in recent years, but none of them have been able to capture the pure, unadulterated quality of this flick. It is so atmospheric and spooky. It has a great soundtrack. And it is Scooby-Doo at its purest, even with the upgrade in quality of both the animation up till that point, because the last quality thing Scooby-Doo to come out was a pup named Scooby-Doo. And Pup Named Scooby-Doo is good, but I mean, that show was hyper cartoony, even by the standards of this franchise, so you know what I'm talking about. But the point is, I feel like it is Scooby-Doo at its funnest, even discounting the original series, and it is the most direct follow-up. And a lot of the Scooby-Doo is in continuity with each other. There's a couple of alternate universes, but most of Scooby-Doo media exists in a single shared universe. I could talk about Scooby-Doo forever. I might start talking about Scooby-Doo more. I want to talk about more things I love on this channel. The point is, I love Scooby-Doo. And I would highly recommend, even for those skeptical among you, to watch Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island on Halloween. It is Halloween, but you know my point. Watch it. And if you feel so inclined, do so in the dark, with someone close to you, nearby, to comfort you, as it gets a little bit scary. You might be surprised about how much of a shiver it sends down your spine. I mean, or I could be 100% off. You never know. I mean, again, hey, what scares you? And again, I wouldn't say the movie actually scares me, but it does. It's definitely got to the point where if they had dipped their toe a little bit further, I mean, Scooby-Doo has obviously always been, you know, flirting with the horror genre. Obviously. And in fact, one of the earlier pitches for the original Scooby-Doo Where Are You show was so scary that the guys who were creating it, actually had to tone it down. That's how scary the original thing is. And the atmosphere of the show, I mean, the backgrounds of the original show are actually pretty grungy. I mean, it could be because everything is either run down or just like really dark coloring, but it's always great. We see daytime in Scooby-Doo Where Are You, but very rarely. It's a classic for a reason, and obviously I would recommend it. It's not as cliche as you would think. A lot of the classic gags barely show up in that show because it hadn't become cliche yet. It took a decade for that to really become a thing with this franchise, but watch it. I think it's a good time. And even if you don't care about it at all, play a drinking game. Hell, play a drinking game with any number of these. I guarantee you, about half of them will exist, the drinking games, on TV tropes for any of the things I've mentioned. Most of them, anyway. Like, for instance, I guarantee you, I haven't looked at it, but the Hocus Pocus drinking game probably has a condition for take a drink every time somebody mentions the word virgin.
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 Virgin. Virgin.
Virgin. Virgin.
Because you will be so drunk from that alone. But hey, it'll be a fun time at least. And hey, Hocus Pocus is fun to begin with. So, this has been the Imagination
Circus Halloween Special.
I hope you all enjoyed, and if you feel so inclined, please do visit me again in the future. Thank you, and have a good Halloween. Hey, Jadar, we gotta get started on that video. Did you find the goat? Well, we need a goat.